Let's have it.
Hey, let's have it. Let's have what? We tried to record this, and yours truly here, who works in IT, yes, didn't remember to turn all the switches on, and we want to record. Last week when we did our first, welcome back after hiatus, I never got the camera turned on. I could see Antoine, so at least I knew who I was talking to, but I never turned the recording on. So what kind of inexperienced, unprofessional boob you're working with here right now. But anyways, how's it going, my man? How are you today?
Everything is great, man. Just enjoyed those few good days of, I guess you call it, warm weather for January. The sun was shining, moved around a little bit, but other than that, man, everything is good.
Yeah. It's this. I always think of this time of year. It's the January thaw, but usually there's about 16 inches of snow on the ground that has to thaw as well. And this year, we've had virtually none here in Wisconsin, especially where I am. And I'll tell you, I was reading. We got a calendar this winter or this year from I think it's the the International Crane Foundation, and they've got all these like creatures and stuff, and they talk about how this kind of weather is actually really hard on a lot of the critters because they depend on like being able to burrow into snow and using that for insulation in the winter. So there might be some varmints that are appearing in places you wouldn't expect them, just because they're trying to keep warm, baby. We're out here in the cold, dude. You want to sit there and complain to me when you're sitting in your Lennox furnace heated, house? Don't give me that garbage. Come live out here and see what it's like.
And global warming doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't. Climate change, family. What's that all about? Too, we're going to have to talk about climate change at some point, because I actually have a nephew that is up in Alaska right now. Recording. This is a fun job where he records like temperature, does probes in lakes and whatnot to see what's happening to them. And, we get caught up on stuff like, we don't know that hasn't been going on forever. We only record temperatures back 100, 200 years. So how do we know? It's like, well, yeah, actually we do know there were many ice ages. In fact, Dickens, lived during one when he wrote Christmas Carol. So yeah, I get that. But the thing is, it's weird to me. It's like we don't want to accept responsibility, or that we could potentially be responsible in some way. We would just as soon, like not being responsible is some reason to feel better about it or to deny that it exists. It's like, well, I've never had a car accident, so how do I know they exist? And then all of a sudden you have one right in front of you, go, oh, I guess they do happen, but I didn't cause it. It's like, I don't get the thinking process and all this. But we started talking right before we started this recording adventure, and we were talking about the whole idea of our current president, and he continues to regularly come out and say these outlandish things. And I think I was relating to how, even on the campaign trail, he said things like, oh, I love my Christians, go ahead and vote this time, Christians, and you won't have to vote again. And, that's verbatim just about. I mean, go back and listen. It's still, I think it's still out there. It hasn't been rescinded like the Constitution has been from whitehouse.gov. Check that out too. But there is there's like a tolerance level that's been building up. It's like the people that build a tolerance level to arsenic, and they can ingest more and more of it ultimately until, it would be a dose that would kill somebody else. Boiling frogs, right? The experiments where they keep turning the Bunsen burner up a little bit, and the frog never gets out until it boils to death. So we're doing the same thing. I mean, this guy, let's just think about this for a second. The guy did fellatio with a microphone in front of a whole big group of people, and they all laughed. They thought that was funny. He talked about Arnold Palmer's schlong for something like 5-10 minutes from, at a rally, and everybody laughed. They thought that was the greatest thing, it's just, so I think about those things, and yeah, if you're hanging out with a bunch of guys or something and you want to talk about Arnie's schlong, that's locker room talk. I get it. I'm not like, oh my God, they talked about a man's penis, so what? But when you're in front of a group of people, right, and you want them to vote for you, what does that tell you about us, that people like Mike Johnson, who are professed Christians, just glossed over that. Oh, that's just the way he is. So my question today is, we know this about the person, and now this week he's come out. We have this horrific accident where 67 people or something like that was killed. And they're, instead of coming out right away and saying, we're going to investigate this, we're going to find out what happened. Immediately we're looking for a scapegoat. It was Biden and his policies with DEI that caused it. I mean, there's been multiple things that have been thrown out there. And so in all of that, my question is, why do we feel it necessary to keep talking about him and getting upset about the idiotic, horrible things he says? Because let's face it, he is an attention slut. That's right. I said that on our podcast. He's an attention slut. I don't expect you to say that, repeat that, Antoine. You're a pastor. You can't. But you can say, yeah, my heathen friend Raul that I'm ministering to, he said that word. I won't say it, right? But I'm going to say it because that explains it better than just saying he's an attention monger. No, he's an attention slut. So, and what do sluts do, right? If any kind of a slut, the more you give them attention, the more you listen to their slutty tales, the sluttier they become. Because it's like, oh, well, you like this, baby? I got some more sluttiness for you. And so my question is, should we, how would we avoid talking about the slut and instead talk about, women of character or men of character? Let's talk about what are the things that we can do in our communities. Because I don't know that nationally we can do a lot right now until midterms. And who knows then what we'll do. Honestly, the majority of people have to vote. And I don't know that there's a majority yet that can look at that and go, yeah, don't want that in office anymore. So, what do we do? Do we keep doing that, or do we just say, you know what, I'm done. Let's focus on what we can do here in our community. Let's focus on what we can do amongst our friends. Let's build a cocoon of compassion and decency and, integrity and care and love, like the scripture talks about. Take care of the poor and the needy and the widows, take care of the people that need people caring for them and ourselves. Instead of just getting upset about the Trumpism of the day, did you hear what he said? Yeah, no, I didn't. And I really would rather not. Thank you very much. I've got this person that I'm caring for today, an elderly man in the neighborhood who he has lost his wife. He has, no one around. He's so lonely. I'm going to go spend a couple hours and just talk with him. He's got great stories, Why wouldn't we do that? And what is the danger of doing that instead of continuing to get our underwear in a bundle because he said yet again another predictably horrible thing? It's just like he's just back going, what is the most horrible thing I can say that will piss off the number of people? And they've got some board somewhere, right, that they're figuring out, okay, well, you could say, we're going to change the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. They'll get a big contingency all upset about that. And they'll go be upset about that and we won't have to worry about them. I swear to God, he must be doing something like that because it's just so pathologically logical that he is doing the things he is doing. All right, well, there I am. Okay, I've said about my piece. I'm going to shut up now and let you talk. Gosh, sorry, Antoine.
You're fine, man. And of course, what the Bible says, man, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? Yeah. And so this person, he is doing nothing but speaking what is truly on his heart. And the question was, do we continue to listen? Can we cut them off? Do we continue giving them attention? It's almost like we have to. Unfortunately, we have to, because we have to know what he's trying to do, when he's trying to do it. Because again, in his first administration, he didn't have the understanding of the power that he had at the time, but now he does. And he has actually equipped himself. He's actually put himself in a position to execute all the things that he and Stephen Miller are saying and trying to bring it into about. This week we had a test run on cutting off benefits, right? Mm-hmm. The very people that voted for him, a senior white woman, she was complaining about, he's going to cut off my food stamps. Well, you voted for him. Yeah. But see, the thing is, and the sad part to say is, we've been conditioned to tolerate this nonsense. Of course, even over the last time, even in the first Access Hollywood tape came out, grab him by whatever, right? Yeah. And from that day forward, we've been being conditioned to tolerate lewdness, lasciviousness, and just all this nonsense. We've been tolerated to do it. And of course now, and even talking with some Trumpers, it's like, oh, he don't mean what he say. Yeah, he does. He means it. And even if he don't know, and the sad part is he don't even know what he means. He got people in his ear telling him, hey, the conservative society, the federalist society, this is what the country should look like. Some Christian organizations, I don't want to, I'm getting to the point where I don't even want to call them Christians anymore, because they've yielded themselves to the power of the enemy, because they've put an idol on top of themselves. They put, just like with the Israelites, they say, hey, Lord, we're going to trust you. We're going to follow you. And before Moses even came down with the law, they were breaking the first two. There'll be no other gods before me, and don't make any idols, So they've created this gentleman as an idol, because he does represent what their perceived ideology of what the country should look like. It should be ran by white men, point blank, end of story. Anything else is intolerable. And I hope white women grab this and really take hold of this, because in this white man's world, you're supposed to be in the kitchen. You're not supposed to be educated and outspoken and all these different kind of things. You're not supposed to be a CEO. You're not. So they want to roll back all these different things. Because again, with the rolling back of the Civil Rights Act, with the Voting Rights Act, all these things, there's clauses in there for white women and women as a whole. Right. And you have to really read the whole document to get how this thing affects you. Yeah. And of course, going back to the original question, should we listen to this? Well, Maya Angelou said, when a person tells you who they are, believe them. Right. And the thing is, we have to take heed, because I'm not a Fox News person, but I have to tune in to see what's being said. Yeah. I have to see, because that way, it's an old analogy, say how the atheist is always ready to debate the Christian, but the Christian is not always ready to debate the atheist. So by me tuning in over there, I at least have an idea of what's being said, a thought, some talking points, and I can actually bring some scripture to it. But with this gentleman here, everything he's trying to do is in church folks or these Christian organizations. Again, I'm trying not to talk down on the church, because John Bevere, he says the church is under attack, and is under attack by the church. And so, but the thing is, and this is where, these folks, they're believing him because he fits their, he is the puppet of their ideology. These billionaires have bought him. They bought him, and they get this. He, like you said, you called him that S word, right? And he is the puppet. A hand is up there, because he don't know how to talk to these things. He don't understand these things. Right.
Well, he's a fantastic distraction, right? He's out to the highest bidder. Yeah.
And and of course, what he wants comfortable. He wants to be rich. He wants to be famous. That's what that's what he wants his legacy to be. But and what people have to realize is, we have to deprogram ourselves to some of this speech. We have to say, this is no longer tolerable. Yeah. These things, this is no longer tolerable. These words that are being said, the actions that are being done, the things that are attempted to be committed, they're no longer tolerable. When will, because almost a third of the country voted for him. Yeah. And now they're seeing that they're going to come to the realization. They actually got a test run this week, but they're going to come to the realization that they're no different than me. They're no different. Right. And that's and they got the test run. Like I say, this older, she's a somewhat senior white woman. Like, oh, they're going to cut off my benefits. Well, you voted for this. Right. Well, you can't believe, but he don't mean what he say. Yes, he does. Right.
Well, number of
understand it, and then this is the thing. We have to understand that it's not him who's talking. It's the people behind him that's talking. He's the mouthpiece. Because again, he's just the mouthpiece behind this movement. And what is this movement? It has been here since the beginning of time. White supremacy. It's about money. This whole thing is about money. Yeah. And it's about power and control. Yeah. money, power, and control. With the money comes the power. With the power comes the control. And then you do what I say. As you do, you're a second-class citizen. You're 3/5 a part of a person. You're this, you're that. This is who you are. This is what you need to be. And this is where we want you. And we're going to circumvent. We're going to bend the rules. We're going to break every law that we can to put you in your place. And of course, as we see the deliberate attack on Black and brown America, voting rights, civil rights, and then of course, they're cutting off every avenue of funding to the black and brown community, the Black and brown business person, the Black and brown nonprofit. Every avenue of revenue is being cut off as we speak. And why? Because this is my thoughts I think towards you and where you need to be. And then, of course, and this is where allies really have to stand up, because Dr. King, I'm going to paraphrase one of his many famous quotes. He said, "What's going to be remembered is not the voice of the enemy, but the silence of my friends." Now, of course, there's friends friends that have they are Republican. That's just the way it is. Hey, because again, you have your ideology, you believe what you believe. That's fine. And of course, again, I'm a firm believer that some things should be controlled by government, and then there's some things that we have a birthright to. Mm-hmm. Speaking of birthright, that threat of that being taken away is being it's been thrown out there, and it's just we have to take him at his word, but not only take him at his word, but we have to speak out against these things. We have to really bombard the gates of our state legislators, our senators, our congressmen and women, and saying, this is not what I voted for. And again, like we said last week, a lot of people are going to realize that instead of saying, hey, I was wrong about this, I was wrong, they'll let pride swallow them whole. They're going to let the price of insulin go back up to wherever it was, and they're going to suffer in silence and die versus saying I was wrong. So we as a people just have to simply say, we got to speak up. We got to talk. And of course, as we know that let's go back to pre-January 6th. Remember, via George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement came about. And then there was all these laws against peaceful protests, all these laws. But January 6th, it didn't apply. Mm-hmm. Proud Boys walking down the streets with guns in Michigan and all these other places.
Shooting didn't apply. People, right? I mean, that happened didn't down apply. In Racine, where we had, Kyle.
Oh yeah, that they actually idolized that young man, and
Rittenhoff.
And it's just so many things that are so blatant and so contradictory to what the U.S. Constitution says we have and what we are supposed to be as a country. But again, it just goes to show you that there's a fragment or a fraction of people in this country that they hate. They just flat out hate. There's no other word. Hate. White supremacy. It exists. It's real. It's living. It has taken on many forms and fashions over the decades, but it's still here.
Yeah. You said something a while back about admitting you're wrong. And it made me think about, I've talked about it many times. I've been married we're coming up on 39 years in August. And one of the hardest things in that 39 years has been when we're in the heat of an argument and, I'm sure that I'm right and she's usually is right. And I will fight. I will dig myself so deeply into a hole that, it becomes a matter of, I can't possibly admit I was wrong now because, what happens the next time we get into, she's going to be able to say, you said you were wrong before. Why aren't you wrong now? My imagination.
But, and that's the legal, and that's why it's funny you just said that the very thing, because of course our country is based on laws, and so the law has a precedent, and so if this precedent reigns and rules, this law or precedent may be in your favor. However, if you say, you know what, I was wrong about how my stance or my position was on that thing, rather than say we were wrong, like you were just using that analogy, brother, when it comes to our wives, we're wrong. almost all the time.
Well,
and
I have to say too, those times when I have bit the bullet and said, and it took quite a while. I mean, it probably is something I've only been able to do maybe in the past 5 years or so, is to, come back either in the midst of it and just kind of start breathing and thinking, okay, you've gone far enough here, or, get calmed down and then come back. But when I have been able to come back, when I have chosen, that's the important, when I have chosen to come back and say, you know what, sweetheart, I was wrong. I
How freeing is that?
What you were saying, and you were really right. And now, and maybe it's just because the kind of woman my wife is, she doesn't lord that over me and become like high and mighty about, well, I knew I was right all along. There's none of that. What it has done is strengthen our relationship. It's made me slowly, because I'm a man, slowly realize that fessing up and admitting that I'm wrong really isn't that painful. It is humbling.
How freeing is it?
Right. It very much so, because all of a sudden you're free to exist. The fact that I'm not always right. I can't always be right. I need to know more. And that's probably where our media, all kinds of things, get it wrong, is we need to know more instead of just immediately saying, what is it? Mark Twain's famous saying, right? Believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. And that becomes more and more of an issue with the media, because they can tell you can show who, what, where, how, and when. You can show those things. They're objectively. This is what happened. This is where it happened. This is how. These are the things that led up to it happening, blah, blah, blah. But the minute you start getting into why it happened, you better really do some research, because you need to understand both the parties that were involved and what they were thinking, what was going on, why they did what they did. And then you need to understand your own, why are you seeing it the way that you see it? Because we have biases. We'll look at two people fighting and think that, well, he's obviously right and she's wrong. No. And a woman will look and go, well, she's obviously right and he's wrong. Well, what's our bias in that's getting in the way of us really seeing what's going on? And it's so telling to me that we are, as a country, saying that it's okay to do fellatio with a microphone. It's okay to talk about Arnold Palmer's schlong. It's okay. Those things, which would have, 20 years ago, it would have ended his career. It would have ended his career to make fun of a disabled reporter by doing that, and getting it on tape that he did that, because he can't come back and say, you did this. He did it. That would have ended his political career, but we're okay with it because that's just the way he is. Well, I will die for your right to have freedom of speech and to say what you say. But I also have a responsibility to myself and to the people that I, know and that know me and what I want to be known for, to say, yeah, I don't want to use the F-bomb anymore. I appreciate that you use the F-bomb, and I'm not going to say that's, that potty mouth. I won't be around potty mouth. That's baloney too. But you can make the choice that, I really don't want to be around that. So, my son has to learn that with his mom, right? He's F-bombing things because that's, he's a 20-something, and they F-bomb, that F and this did that. And what a stupid F had, and so you sit back and think, yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm a theater person. What the heck? I've seen worse than that. But his mom does not, it makes her very uncomfortable. She doesn't like it. So he's learned in front of mom, I'm not going to use that word. That's respectful. And that's where I think we really have missed the boat with our president. He is not respecting any norms. He isn't, the laws don't apply to him because he's the president, and now he can do anything in his office that would normally be illegal. And as long as it's within the office of the scope of his powers, he can do it and not be prosecuted for it. He's laid in some really integral pieces to being lawless. And, he's going to take Greenland, whether he wants, people want to let him or not.
And And the Supreme Court has given him this pass to do so, as long as he says it's within the scope of his powers. So he can claim any and everything is within the scope of his powers. So he's do all these executive orders are within the scope of his powers. But again, we have to give God praise that there are some people out here fighting. But I want to go back to the point you were making. You made a great point. Yes, the way he expresses himself and how he does things is unacceptable. But again, we've been programmed to do so, but not to. Like now, when we talk about people expressing themselves and being able to express themselves freely, we have to really take a step back and say, okay, this is their upbringing. This is where they came from. This is where they are now. Now, understand, it's like everyone can only communicate on the level that they know, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and the thing with that is simply we can disagree with a person's methodology on a message, but sometimes you just can't disagree with the message. Right. You can say, I didn't like how you said it, but I 100% agree with what you said. Mm-hmm. But with this gentleman, it's like, I don't agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with how you said. I don't agree with even the thought process. Mm-hmm. And that's where, and that's where that fine line, it's like, like saying, like, talking about talking about how we can have to come to the space of letting pride go and admitting when we're wrong. And that applies on both sides, admitting that we're wrong about our stance on a matter, but also our perception or our bias in a matter, right?
Yeah.
Like we're saying, it's like, just because a person can say a thing a certain way doesn't make it wrong. It's just, I disagree with the methodology of the methodology in which you communicate your message, but the message is so on point. And when we can actually walk that fine line and give people grace along those lines, we'll start to move the needle in this kingdom. Like tomorrow, man, I'm starting a sermon series called Love Will Win, man. And of course, I'm talking about in a day, in a space, in a time where, these things, of course, everything that we're seeing now, it has been done already. Of course, we're going back to 1860 something, right? When slavery was abolished and all those different things there, the hatred that, how dare you give these people the right and the access to do this and that and the other. And of course, what happened, and it's like every time there's some form of black advancement or brown advancement, these people, they rise up and say, okay, that's enough of this. We want you to be back in your place. And here we are again, 2025.
Yeah. Do some research on restoration, right? After the Great mm-hmm. Civil War, right? We started making progress. There were actually elected officials that were black men that were in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, that were becoming mm-hmm. mayors of their towns and whatnot. And that went just so far. And then Jim Crow laws started taking effect. And, incarceration started really pushing up. So we had to find a different way to enslave those same people that had been slaves. And, notice too that it wasn't just black people, it was white people too. They're some of the most integrated communities are prisons, when it comes down to it, because it's people that don't have the ability to fight. They haven't had the ability to have education. They haven't had the opportunities to work towards having better jobs. So what do they have? They have crime as a way to get by. I get it, but we can't talk about that because we can never get that far in the discussion. It's just a never ending vortex of crap. And so I keep coming back to the question, just how much attention do we pay to it? Because I totally agree. We need to be aware of what's going on. But, I wear Star Trek stuff all the time. And one of the best characters on Star Trek is Spock. Because Spock will sit there and watch people losing their shit. Just emotionally, going out of control. And Spock will sit back there and watch it all and just go, fascinating. So I got to get to that place because I know exactly what you're saying. And my thing is I just start getting so bound up and, how can he say that?
And we all do. We all do.
I got to be fascinated by it. I have to figure out a way to keep my mind in that fascinating, interesting, and be able to see what's really going on. Because I believe one of the things Trump does best is distract people from what's really going on. there is this issue of he says these outlandish things so that something, right, exactly. It's the magician trick, right? So, and we need to have that mindset that says fascinating so that we can dig in and say, it's interesting. When he said that outlandish thing, he also passed this and this and this, or he also all of a sudden, Mark Zuckerberg took back his, DEI kinds of things he had been doing with his. He took back the censorship that he was doing on Facebook. Isn't that interesting? So, and the media's responsibility is to keep track of that and keep bringing it out. But it's also interesting that one of the things he has attacked from the get-go is the media. Anyone that comes out with anything that exposes something he doesn't want to see or recognize or admit or have to say I was wrong, he's attacking those people as fake news. And so you get, CBS now in 60 Minutes. CBS is being sued because they did, during the election,
ABC,
a show with, Kamala Harris being able to talk with the interview. He had been offered the opportunity to do the same thing, but he didn't do it because he was waiting for an apology from Leslie Stahl, or I forget her. But anyways, one of the primary people who had insulted him, he wanted an apology from her first before he would, tape a show with them. And now he's suing them because they gave them, they gave her, preferential treatment. Well, it's like saying, I'm suing you because you didn't shovel the walk when you came to shovel the walk, and I didn't let you shovel the walk because I didn't like the way you asked me. Well, but you had every opportunity to get your walk shoveled. Why is it now my fault? Why are you giving me a hard time because I didn't shovel it? You told me not to.
It's a smoke screen. Is all it is a, like you're saying, moving hands. Watch this car. Watch. I'm gonna show you because it's all about pretending to be to his base. Of course, it's like he'll give the illusion that I'm sticking up, I'm fighting for you, and this and that and the other. But it's like, what? You're actually scared to go on there because you know that they were going to ask you some tough questions that you were not going to be able to answer, and two, a truth was going to be exposed. So it's like, I'll give you all of this to say, oh, this is why I didn't do it. And a lot of people, anyone with will just simply say that's nonsense. Because again, especially in a presidential election, you're going to take every opportunity to get your point of view out there, or even to correct some misinterpretations or whatever the case may be. Yeah. You're going to want to take every opportunity to get out what you need to get out. And, and of course, he didn't want to do that. And the thing is, but again, like you were just saying, like the smoking watch, we have, like you made a good point. It's like when we see a whole bunch of noise being made about something, we got to look at what's happening behind the hand, what's happening behind the back, what's happening. Yeah. Because we're talking about DEI, we're talking about the cutting of benefits, we're talking about all these things, but birthright citizenship kind of slid on in there. Right. And of course, Mr. Percy Brown, he has an event on February 18th talking about birthright citizenship and what it means. Because again, if he says, "Oh, I want to end birthright citizenship," a lot of people would right away say, "Oh, they're going to take it to this." Latino Americans that were born in this country, their birthrights will be revoked. But not knowing that if that is passed, that precedent goes how much further back? Yeah. And then a lot of people don't even realize if you got a German dad and a Polish mom, your birthright can be taken away from you too. And again, it's like, it's this whole thing, man. I've in my mind, I've had to simplify this thing down to, it's the same thing as what it's always been. It's a white supremacist type of setting. It's about money. It's about money. I don't want you to get ahead. I don't want you to have anything. And I want all the money for myself because the money gives me power to make decisions, power to gerrymander and create laws and do all these things against you. And then the power gives me control. Like right now, we have a presidency, a Senate, and a House under one form of control. And glory be to God that I believe that he is causing confusion in the camp, that they're fighting against each other. That's our saving grace. How many times have we seen them do that in the Bible? But it just, glory to God. But it's like all of these different things are this is where we are. And we have to see that this is where we are. And of course, until people really grasp and see that, hey, even different sectors of the country, different groups, everyone, that you're going to be affected by this thing one way or another. Like, right. Yes, I'm not 100%, but I was looking and they were saying like the 25% tariffs are going to start on Canada and Mexico. We are North America, and our two closest people, you're going to attack them and then give China a 10% tariff. And again, people not understanding what a tariff is and how it affects the country.
Right. Well, do some research, folks. Talk to your friends that are farmers. Talk to your friends that like to drink a lot of beer. The vast majority of the beer that we drink, except obviously microbreweries and the like, but Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, all the products that they put out there, their primary factories are in Mexico. So look it up. Look where, things are bottled in the U.S., but made in Mexico or whatever. Because the labor is less expensive, so they can keep the price of beer down so that they sell more. Canada, right? Canada, not only do we buy quite a bit from, but we also sell a lot to them. So our farming communities, they took a huge hit with the last time we did any significant hit or, trying to settle down the amount of trade, because they were buying a lot of the whey product that's a byproduct of milk, so that it can be made into cheese and other products. Well, they ended up not buying nearly as much.
What did China tell American farmers to do? Y'all eat that soy before we buy it.
Right, exactly. And I mean, you can talk about things like, yeah, we want more manufacturing jobs back in the U.S., but folks understand, I'm not against labor getting paid. They should absolutely be paid better and treated better than we have treated labor in the past. But that treatment of labor has been a result of profiting. Profit to shareholders, profit to the companies. And we frankly got too expensive as American labor, got too expensive. So they moved things offshore so that they could make more profit and show more money to the bottom line for their shareholders. That's it. So now if we are successful in bringing people back, think it through. What's going to happen to the cost of everything that we're buying? Because we're paying more for the bottom layer of things. Or we're going to, pay more for reconstructing factories, or we're going to pay more because they have to put more robotics into it so that it makes more money for, or it makes equal amounts of money, whatever. There are trickle down effects in all this that we don't get to talk about. And we don't talk about because we're too busy grabbing the mackerel that's been, dangled in front of us, instead of thinking, well, wait a minute, what's in that mackerel? Anyways, it looks kind of green. I don't know. I don't know that came from good water. No, we're just sucking the mackerel down, going, love that mackerel. So it's just like, come on.
And that's where, again, we have to have a full understanding of every, and again, we were talking about this last season, but it's just having a full understanding of every branch of government, the executive, judicial, legislative branch, understanding what they do and what their purposes are. Just like what you just made a great point about labor and its cost. And of course, it took me some years to really figure this out, because I just, and honestly, my ignorance and my obliviousness, like when I was working at Oscar Mayer back in 1994, just a few years out of high school, making great money. And of course, we in Madison, Wisconsin, we're making $12-13 an hour.
Right.
But what Oscar Mayer started to do, they started to ship out all the production lines to Fullerton, California, where they were able to pay people half of what they were paying us. And it was just, and we didn't get it. Not a lot of us didn't get it. And of course, just a young person like myself, just like, okay, I'm making all this money at this young age. This is great, blah, 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 blah. But how it affected other people, like the people that were being there for 20, 30 years, they had these really nice, cushy jobs in the Lunchable section, where you just put the cracker in the hole and, but then it's like, okay, this person is in their 60s, but now I'm going to put you back on this line and their seniority is going to bump me out.
Right.
And it's like all these trickle down things. And you hit it on the head. We have to really understand and know there's always a cause and effect.
Yeah.
And we have to understand the reason behind the cause and then the long-term effect of that cause. And
okay. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to try to stick to our agenda here, right? We had a time thing. Closing thoughts, Antoine. Closing thoughts.
Well, no, just simply put, we have to believe, it's like much as we don't want to give this person this attention, we have to listen. We have to have Lord, give us eyes to see and ears to hear and the ability to discern, because, but not only give us the ability to discern, but give us a biblical action on what steps to take to fight these things. Because again, even if we try to take the fight to them, there's laws have been created to stop our fight. So it's like we have to listen to what's being said. There's I'm hanging out with a younger group because I want to see their forms of organization now. Because again, it's like when we're talking about organizing and getting this word out and getting people to understand, they are the future of this country and what needs to go and how it needs to go. So it's like me and my 50-something mind. It's like, okay, I need a fresh way of thinking. I need a better way of seeing this thing. Yes, I have a premise of what's wrong, but how do we attack it? How do we move the needle? But of course, in my space and where I am, and I'm just so grateful for the love that has been given to me through my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that I can't help but love how he loved me. And of course, just because I love and forgive a person don't mean I condone their sin. It's just simply put, I can't allow it to change how I feel. I can't allow these things to change my heart's posture. So it just, yes, it takes me into a deeper space of prayer. I mean, it just, I can disagree with you, but I can't let my disagreement turn into hate, because then all I'm doing is mimicking the poor behavior that is being exhibited towards me. So if we, again, going back to what we said last week, if we can get people of God, let's start in the church first. If we can get these Mike Johnsons and all these people that are sitting in Congress saying, I'm a Christian, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, if these Christians start to live by biblical principle and less by personal preference, watch the needle move. So that's my final thought on it. I can't allow my heart to be turned regardless of what is said, done, or thought. And, but at the same time, we can't condone the behavior. We have to speak up and out against it in a positive form.
Yeah. The more you've been talking, the more I've been thinking about both my comment about Spock and being able to be less emotionally charged and more intellectually engaged, to be fascinated by it. Because, Spock never says he doesn't have emotions. He just says, through logic, they've learned how to, utilize the emotions and channel them in more effective, constructive ways. So, and I really want to learn, and I hope we all can learn, that it's not about the emotional angst and anger that it causes in us. It needs to be about the compassion for the people that wanted him as the president. What was it? What did he ignite in them? What did he appear? Because, Lucifer appears as an angel of light. He appeared to them to be something that they're longing for, that we long for. He appeared to be a savior to many of them for restoring America, making America great again, right? Restoring America's greatness. And that's something that if patriotic people want, right? That's a passionate thing. People die for that, right? And somehow, though, we lost the ability to think it through and say, what's the best way to get there? What is the best way to become great? And I see it more and more like, well, we need to be the light on the hill. We need to be the people that are loving those elderly people in our neighborhoods that live next door, that are in nursing homes. That if you feel called, there isn't a nursing home, I don't think, in the entire United States or even in the world that wouldn't welcome having you come on a weekly or monthly basis to just talk or play music. Shame on me. I play guitar. And for years I thought, I should just go over once a month or whatever and just play some hymns on the guitar, and lead people in song, and just be someone that shows I care. Because that's where I think we lost the boat. Those of us that are, I put it on educated folks. A lot of us have been so busy being smart about things, we forgot to be kind. We forgot to be compassionate. We forgot to be engaged in life, so that the people that didn't get educated have felt like we were saying all along, you're dumb, you don't understand this. And that's on us. The anger that those folks were feeling, we played a part in that by not being respectful. I mean, I work with guys that never went beyond high school, and I respect, though, what they do. They've worked hard all their lives. They've been very successful in a lot of things. That should command my respect. I can't be walking around going, yeah, I'm one of two people here at this company that have a master's degree. Master's degree. That's the kind of, I'm obviously caricaturing it, but that's how it's seen. So let's get back, let's strip all away that nonsense, and let's be watching, listening to what he's saying, and saying, okay, fascinating. Who is this directed at, and how can I get them? Because we're not going to win again unless we figure out a way to reach that spectrum of people that don't think we care, that don't think that the message of compassion and DEI and equal rights and equal opportunities, that those really are not just for Black people. Those are for everybody. Because whether or not you believe, in these things that are horrible that happen, however you want to make it, can't we just admit that it was horrible that it happened? People, white folks, get all upset that, well, I never had a slave. I never did any of that. And you know what? I didn't either. But the reality is, can't we just feel bad about this happening? That people did this to other people? Why does it have to be about, well, I don't like feeling guilty because I'm white? Not guilty because you're white. You're guilty because you're a person that sits back and lets this crap happen. That's why you're guilty. That's what you should feel bad about. Period.
And let's not mistake guilt for just having a feeling about it. Of course, a lot of times, that's it. Don't mistake guilt for something else. It's just like if the Lord stirs something up in your spirit, that don't mean I need to feel guilty about it. Just say, okay, for whatever reason, this thing is on my heart to make have a voice about it or a movement about it,
right? And
let that happen. It ain't necessarily about, because exposing things ain't about trying to guilt other people. Of course, I've said this in numerous other platforms. It's just like, it's almost like the country is tired of hearing the Black man cry. And it's like, okay, I've heard that already. Now I get it. Now, and it's like, no, you don't get it, because here it is again.
Yeah. There's a wonderful moment in, I think it's in Avengers 1, where they first are coming together, and Captain America, beautiful scene. There's an older guy. Loki has come, and he's causing all this chaos and getting people, this large group of people, to kneel before him. And he's saying, your new Lord, blah, 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 whatever, his pompous nonsense. And one of the elderly guys in the crowd stands up and he says, no, I'm not going to kneel before you. There have always been men like you that want others to kneel, and I'm not going to kneel. And Loki's like, see, people, let this elderly gentleman be an example to you of what happens. And just as he's about to blast this guy to smithereens, Captain America jumps in with it, with his shield, blocks the blast that's coming off and saves this guy. And it's like such a moment. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? There's something very figurative about that. Let's be Captain America. Let's be Captain America that jumps in the middle of this stuff that's going on, where people are being attacked. People of color are being attacked right now.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Yeah. You almost described that scene.
Right? Let's do it. Let's just do that. Okay, let's set our mind on that and not on the, just depravity of the minds that are guiding the picture right now. Because if we don't, we're going to end up just seeing the picture they want us to see all the time, and it's going to be against the law to show any other picture, and all of our freedoms that we thought we were fighting for are just going to be gone. And that's just a reality of how fascism works. And, you know, I don't know. I pray God, open our eyes, you know, let us see what's going on around us, and let us be compassionate enough to understand how we got there, and convicted enough to get out, right? To get out of this. Wake up. I want to be awake and be aware and do something to help the people in the nursing home. You know, that's so much more rewarding than what we're doing right now. Oh, gosh.
We just know. We just have to believe that love will win.
Indeed. There you go. You're starting a series on. I heard of this guy, Antoine Holloman Sr. was going to be doing a series on that. Well, did you hear that? I heard that. So
love will win.
Well, I'm Raul LaBresh, and what's your name again? I keep forgetting.
Antoine Holman Sr.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you for reminding me. I'm 64 years old. I forget so much. I'm like, where am I all the time lately? But we're together. We are a frame of reference coming together, and we hope this conversation, at least I do, hope gives you something to think about, something to talk about. We hope you'll tell your friends to listen and to see what these guys got to say. And if you don't, agree with us, that's fine. Don't agree with us, but figure out why you think what you think, and why we're wrong, and maybe think about how we might be right, because that's important to consider with anyone you argue with, including my wife. So, right, dude. See you next week, same time, same bat channel.
All right, man.
All righty, take care.
Have a great week here. I'll try to give a call this week, man. Right. I guess depending on what happened in the news, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna snooze through the news. Thank you very much.
All right, man.